Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. Time for another episode of K-Tein. Telling everything in nuance. I didn't mess that up. Actually, I did, but we'll we'll move forward with that. So, several things have actually happened for the past few days, or actually, should I say, weeks. So, first thing I guess I'll like to talk about is the Japanese fighting game developer roundtable. I didn't have high expectations going into this, but I was even more or less disappointed by the roundtable as a whole, more than I was excited by anything they announced. I guess one of the first thing is rollback. It seems that a good majority of the uh, companies representing in that roundtable all still feel that rollback exists, but they don't think that's something they really need to do, or rather, they even say that it's very hard. I definitely wasn't in the idea that they're gonna make the current games they have out put rollback in there. I didn't really think that was gonna happen because that's a bit a lot of work and unrealistic, especially for most of these products that's out there are already at least 1 year, possibly even pulling 2 years old. So for them to go and change the infrastructure at that point just didn't seem likely. But I was hoping that they're at least going to say that they understand the importance of rollback and they were going to more or less move forward with their next projects doing that. But no, they seem to have other priorities, such as apparently improving AI so people can have a much more meaningful AI experience, which doesn't really translate the same thing. We definitely had games that at least have somewhat decent, I guess, AIs, but even then, I still don't think that it's something that it should try to focus on. And then they were like, "Oh, we know that people now play on pass, so maybe we should start focusing on our games on our K6 and pass." And it's like fighting games and controllers. Yeah, there's been some correlation of issues with certain games and controllers, but otherwise, people know how to kind of make it work for most games. Most games are not even putting a lot of either input shortcuts or buffers, so even a controller is usually not an issue with for most people playing these games. I mean, some people manage to play fighting games on an Xbox 360 controller, which has been widely considered to be one of the worst controllers to use for fighting games, but people made it work. And in fact, that's just kind of always been the issue. It seems that a lot of these Japanese developers from the fighting game roundtable all feel sorry have this mentality that oh, we want to make this genre bigger, but we're going to focus it. But we're going to focus it on making much more robust single player experience, making AI better, making sure our games are much more accessible for people. Where accessibility hasn't really been the hurdle of the fighting game genre. It's more just been the fact that these games are very, if anything, nuanced in depth for the most part, and if anything, they require players to learn problem solving skills. And most of the tutorials out there don't try to promote the idea of problem solving, or worse, some of the tutorials don't even really tell them the mechanics of the game, or basically the games. I mean, you got Tekken over here that doesn't even have a tutorial, and you're wondering why people suffer. And then they find out, oh, we found out a lot of people playing on Wi-Fi. Well, no, duh. So many people. I mean, the people are playing on consoles. Console has Wi-Fi integrated. Because a majority of other games are usually playable on Wi-Fi, yeah, a good majority of people are, good majority of your players are probably going to be on Wi-Fi. Now I know some of the FGC people and pillars were like, "Why have you people playing on Wi-Fi?" Which, I mean, I play wire. I very much care to make sure I optimize my network and everything. But if you just go rollback, then it's kind of a non-issue. I mean, we got Mortal Kombat, one of the most biggest fighting games out there, and a lot of their players are on Wi-Fi, but people will still play their games. Or it's like, it's usually a manageable experience. So it seems like they're focusing on just all the things that's not really the priority or the issues that either the FTC have been complaining about, or I guess even some of the casual people. And then they even went on to this whole thing of, oh, what characters you put into the game. I mean, yeah, people have their fan favorites, but if people don't get their favorite but still enjoy your product, they're going to find another character to fall in love with, to be engrossed with. When Street Fighter V came out, initially, I mean, I was kind of a fan of Birdie, but I didn't like how they made him. I didn't like his Street Fighter V design, but I kind of played it for a bit. But really, I didn't really find anyone that stuck with me until Colleen came around, and I didn't think I was gonna like this new character. I was hoping for E Honda or Remy, some of these more obscure characters. I like a lot of obscure characters. I don't expect most of them to come back in their next game. So I always in mindset that I had to probably look for a new main character. So and people who really care about your product would generally go in with that mindset, not expecting their favorite character. I mean, of course, you gotta have, I guess, mainstays like the protagonist or the face of your game. Sure, have those characters in there, but was there really need a discussion to find out who or what they put into the game? I mean, yes, you got a vocal minority who voice, oh, we want this or that character, but they're just there to complain, from what I understand. But I'm gonna go ahead and leave that one. Overall, the fight game round two was a disappointment. The only thing that really got me excited, or at least I was happy to excited, was fighting ES Lair announcing, "Hey, we got rollback in our game." It's rough, but it's manageable. It was better than what we had before, so it makes the game more playable. And then they're gonna focus on crossplay, so that was good. Um, well, I did find out that my beloved, I guess, did I say beloved? Well, let's say my waifu from Soul Calibur's return, Sasuke. I did have the opportunity to mess with her a bit in training mode, and for the most part, I'm kind of happy how she turned out. She's definitely more of a stance character this time around. Maybe that's actually Soul Calibur 6 thing is general. I think a lot of characters technically have stance, but she's a stance character. But she still kind of resembles her own gameplay style, having good pokes, pretty fast. Actually does a lot of damage, which I'm kind of surprised. But I'm not gonna act like I even know what is high damage. It's just I still barely put my foot into Soul Calibur. But she's here, and I'm happy, and I'm going to definitely try to put my foot stronger into Soul Calibur 6, since now I at least have two characters I'm interested in, which is Sasuke and Raphael. So there's that. I kind of missed this part, but apparently they said they announced Tamaki for the arcade version of Dead or Alive 6. Which, for one, was there even an arcade version of Dead or Alive 6 to begin with? But if they're so, then that means that they probably aren't completely giving up on the game, and maybe we'll hope some more support in there. I would definitely look forward to that. But then after that, then that was kind of about it. Overall, it seems that a good majority of people who did tune into that was mostly disappointed. Yeah, Tekken announced that they're gonna have a new season with more moves and supposedly better online. I'm not holding my breath for that because they're apparently saying, "Oh, Tekken 7 has rollback already. We'll just have to adjust and make it better." But if it does have rollback, it's one of the worst fucking versions of rollback I play. You make Street Fighter 5 almost at least seem playable. And that's a low bar to achieve, in my opinion. But that's neither here or there. So yeah, Tekken 7, another season coming. So get excited, I guess. But let's see. After that, what else is there? Then I think that was about it. Yeah, that's what I could say that had my interest when it came to the fighting game roundtable. So so besides that, what else is going on? Okay, so actually, let's go ahead and step away from fighting games and go into some single player games. So, Crystar, I managed to play a bit more of this game. In fact, you can see it. It says I put 7 more hours into this game, and oh, is this a character that shows up? Well, that's nice. You have these things that spoils characters, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Anyway, so I managed to play a bit more Crystar. I thought I was kind of definitely done with the game, but I decided to give it a bit more of a shot. And apparently, find out there's even more mechanics in the game that gets unlocked the more you play, which is actually a design I'm still not the biggest fan of. Already hour into the game, and I'm unlocking more mechanics. I mean, there. I understand that this is the progression system that a lot of these supposedly adventure games go, but it seemed like even after the first hour in, the game was like treating me like a tutorial, saying, "Hey, here's this mechanic, and it does this and that," and I'm like, "Why are you giving me all this stuff in such a slow-paced manner?" Well, I think I know why. I'm pretty after playing this game further. It seemed like this game is really was made more for anime fans and wasn't made with actual video game players in mind, because the amount of hand holding this game does and how much it repeats this stuff and how much it focuses mostly on the story and not the actual gameplay reminisces me of Nino Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch. That was an RPG game that came out maybe around let's say 2011 or so. RPG game I tried my hands on. I was pretty digging it initially. The story was really interesting. It seemed like it had some interesting stuff, but boy, were they just doling out everything just so slow. They wanted you to do. They did so much hand holding of. Okay, we introduce this one mechanic. Okay, we're gonna make you do so many different busy work around this mechanic to make sure you understand it. In fact, actually, speaking of busy work, there's a lot of fucking busy work in these games where they make you just, how should I say this? Like the puzzles they had were no, in fact that wasn't a puzzle. Like they had me go to open a gate, I had to go press a switch, but in order to I guess activate the switch, I had to use a certain special item, and I just felt, what are you actually going to make a puzzle out of this? And going further into the dungeon, no, I just got to use that one item just to open doors, and it's like, why is he even making me use this item just to open the door? At least with the Legend of Zelda games, they actually gave you some form of puzzle and task to use around that special item, so you're at least kind of sort of engaged. But it's like, oh no, this door or this one item, we're only gonna just do one little gimmick with it, and that's it. So it's like, if you're not gonna really push that any further, why even introduce it? Why not just let me just streamline through the dungeon of just deal with the monsters, maybe deal with the traps if there's traps in there. But yeah, that's. But then again, this is why I don't really play a lot of those type of games, if you will. Just games that just have you do a lot of monotonous. And this is where I go back to Crystar. So Crystar finally unlocks a mechanic where you get your familiar to attack with you. So that's why there's even a combo meter, because the higher you build your combo, the more quicker your familiar's gauge builds. But actually, when you even activate the familiar gauge with up, I guess that's just like power up mode, nothing really changes. Really, it's just okay. Your familiar's behind you and they attack, but you don't really have that much control behind it. You're still just kind of doing the same thing and just mashing the attack button with now. Oh, sometimes your familiar will block an attack or counter attack for you, and it's like, do I have any agency when I control this familiar? No, it's all passive. So it's like, if it's such a passive driven mechanic that kind of works automatically on its own, why did you even need to wait to introduce it? Why didn't you just offer it to me immediately? And was it definitely a story reason? Because, well, you introduced the familiar in the very first chapter when the character fought the in game, I guess the primary antagonist. So it's not like, oh, we didn't know who the familiar was until you unlocked the mechanic. No, we knew we had a familiar there. You just kept it locked. kept it locked out until you wanted to eventually give it out, and it just made no sense to me. I'm like, what is with this game? Oh well, actually, I do find that you also get tag team people, which also I guess introduce some dynamic between it. But instead of gameplay, which I could say barely improved, I'm at least going to say it's not complete trash, but it still just doesn't make too much sense. Or rather, no, let me correct myself. It's a game that was not made for game players in mind. Because one of the things I also have an issue with the game is I put the game on hard mode because, well, I like having a challenge. I like to be engaged, but the hard mode doesn't do anything. Or I think at most, the enemy just maybe have higher numbers. You give me less experience points, but that doesn't really challenge me as far as I'm concerned personally, because the enemies are all. Do I want to say cannon fodder? Is that the word you would use? Basically, the enemy just has a very predictable pattern. The enemies don't really challenge you unless you just get jumped, which even then, it's it's like, I got a bunch of enemies. If that's the extent of how you challenge your players in this game, then what else is there to what else is there? The enemies are just they're easy to dodge because all their attacks have long wind up. Most majority of the enemies have to go up close counter. They only have like one enemy that does projectile attacks. Even then, those enemies are stationary. So it's like there's really almost no. I feel no real threat when I'm playing. I haven't even died except to one boss when I fought the game's I guess first initial boss. That's when I actually died. Otherwise, I just kind of I was just able to brute force the majority of what the game threw at me because the enemies aren't really challenging, and there's really no danger or risk or threat. I didn't have to risk item management or anything. But then, speaking of items, now that's what my other issue with this Crystar game. So one, you build up, you do grow level, but the levels almost mean jack squat from what I understand, because they just like slightly increase your number, or rather, no, I've increased my level several times, which are supposed to increase my attack damage, but every time I attack, it looks like my damage output is still the same, because when you attack in this game, they actually show you a number, and the number like stay in this relatively similar attack range. I'm like, okay, well maybe I need to get some better equipment. Oh well, you don't really go to a shop to buy better equipment. You got to get it through beating certain enemies. And after you beat certain enemies, you're supposed to, I guess, appraisal the enemy, which is this game's theme of where your character needs to cry to appraise the enemy. And that's the issue. I gotta go through this stupid, monotonous cutscene to appraisal the items I have to get better equipment. And you want to get the equipment, a lot of them are just the same thing, but we have a slot where you can add special modification. So I guess the main point I'm finding out is this game has a crafting system. So I guess that's how they're trying to offset maybe it's such linear like gameplay or whatever crafting system, which I just don't care for crafting in games. One of the reasons why I stay away from a lot of RPG because they're like, craft your item. I don't care for crafting. Just give me equipment I can use and let me go. I don't care to try to make my equipment be specialized or anything. That's what I play an MMORPG for. Not suppose I thought it was an action game. I think I advertised this part. Well, actually, did they advertise it? Let's check that out. Does this game use to advertise that? We're a crafting like game and whatnot. Did they say anything? All right, fight through the tears in this action RPG. Combat the souls of the dead as you explore out the world of the purgatory. Play as 4 different characters and unlock their memories to learn the truth about their stories and achieve it. Okay, power through grief. The battle system includes an over otherworldly beings who fight alongside you. Gather your grief and endure torments to summon your guardian. Okay. Tears give you strength. Crying will help you take down monsters and empower your equipment and Crystar. Okay, so they actually do advertisement. So, and you know what? Now I gotta kick myself because this game straight up focuses on that, and I don't care for that aspect of the game. So you know what? That was my fault. So, well, now I know. Yeah. So as you can see, what it said, use your crying to improve your equipment. Which then I even have to ask, if the equipment are the most more prevalent aspect, why do you even give me levels? Because it seems the going level is only just, oh, we give you a skill tree. We give you a skill tree. You gotta be at a certain level before we allow you to unlock this skill. Which I'm just like, why? I mean, why? I mean, just why? Why do you have to make me go through this monotonous work of leveling up, growing up level, just so I can unlock more abilities and skills? But you know what? That's how some of these games were. And I guess that's just how it is. But this is why I like to like character action game like this one. Now this game, Assault Spy. This game right here, I have additional skill sets, but I can still beat the game with the base skills. I don't have to get the new move sets to more or less improve my character. So, well, sorry, I don't. They're not a requirement. They're not a requirement, if you will. Now, I will admit one thing. I do dislike how if you just start the game initially, unless you do, let's say, like the game has a training mode. Thank God it has a training mode. It has a training mode, and it also has like a survival mode where you can just go for compete for higher scores. But if you but if you just do that, like going into that, you're missing out at least two of the game's mechanics, which are only unlocked if you play at least I think the first, let's say, 4, 5, 6 missions. Now, granted, they're not necessary to beat the game either. I think that necessarily beat the game either, but also just like how I had to go through that story mode just to unlock a mechanic that you plan to give to me, and that's something I have to buy through the store. But yeah, that's kind of what I like. I like my games where you already give me everything I need to beat the game. It's matter of me just learning how to use the tools properly. I don't like these artificial barriers or artificial way of progression where, oh, if you play and participate in the game, then we start giving you stuff for participating. But speaking of that, there's a video from Super Eye Patch Wolf which talks about Shenmue 3. I know I just kind of digress here, but bear with me here. And in that video, there was a concept that had introduced, or not introduced, have elaborate on called, what's the word I want to say? You know what? Better yet, let's just go to that video. Let's just go to that video and there we go. So yeah, bear with me here. So this is the part. I'm just gonna watch this for a good minute before we go further.
I want to quickly talk about two ways games can motivate us to play them: intrinsically and extrinsically. Intrinsic motivation comes from our own internal desire to get better at something, to raise our own skill set within a game. So for example, wanting to learn to reliably pull off a dragon punch in Street Fighter, that's intrinsic motivation, because when we do, nothing about the game has changed. We are internally better at it. Whereas extrinsic motivation is the opposite. This is when the game gives you something for performing a task. Say beating a turn-based battle in an RPG and being rewarded with experience or items. You likely haven't improved much after a single battle, but the game creates that feeling of progress by giving you an external reward. It's motivating you extrinsically. Neither of these systems is necessary.
So yeah, intrinsically and extrinsically. So yeah, I definitely fall in the line of intrinsic games, or rather, I like it when the game intrinsically entertains me, where I want to get better because the game has stuff and mechanic, and it asks me to master it, learn it, master it, and apply it. I'm not a big fan of extrinsic game where the game just gives me something for doing something. Doing something. Main reason why, because most of the time when those extrinsic games, they just give you stuff for participating. So, but how you actually go about doing it, it doesn't really say whether you did this good, whether you did this well or bad. It's just, hey, as long as you did it, then we're going to give it to you. Well, that's why you saw that they even show Devil May Cry, which is the character action games, and that's where I guess where my grief comes in. I thought Crystar was a character action game since it is called, but they did call itself an action RPG, and I just kind of thought, well, maybe they just deal with numbers, but it's not really RPG. But no, it's much more RPG because it wants to reward you by giving you stuff. But if the base gameplay doesn't hold up for me, then I could care less what the game wants to give me. One of the reasons I can stick around the Tales games and the Star Ocean like games is because those games just have in, interesting base mechanics that makes the game fun, and then sometimes they'll add something here or there to differentiate it, but you still are able to more or less play the game as it is. Granted, obviously, if you're dealing with an enemy with a high number, then yeah, you need to level yourself up, but thankfully, like the games like Tales of Grace, that well, if you play the game really well and do really well in battles, we give you additional rewards to help with the monotony of the busy work. But Crystar, Crystar just, ugh, God, that game. Like in fact, right now in Crystar, I had gotten several items, got them appraised, and none of them were an improvement. And I'm like, why aren't any of these items, good? And then the game tells me, oh, try synthesizing your items, aka putting two weak items together to make one stronger sword. But in my mind, I'm like, why am I even doing this to begin with? I mean, yes, the game does have a thing where certain weapons will have certain properties. So let's say you like one sword or one equipment that has one property, but you want to use this other sword that has a stronger, I guess, stronger stats or numbers. You can synthesize it so you can have a sword that has an interesting property, but get the stats of the item with the or weapon with the higher numbers. But personally, I just feel that's just busy work. It's like, why couldn't I just have the sword with the interesting property? Or yeah, no, in fact, that's it. That's it. Why couldn't you just give me that sword with that interesting property? Why couldn't it just have been a rare drop instead of, oh, to get this you need to synthesize item? I just feel it's personally just busy work, and yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Now, if we get away from the gameplay, I guess I could talk about the story. The story is not really any better. The main character, she's just way too unlikable for me. Named Rei Hotada, she's just such a selfish, arrogant, and just overall unlikable. Yeah, she's selfish because she's only about getting her one thing she wants, even though, I mean, yes, the two familiars that you have to deal with, or I guess demons, she had to sign a contract, but she's like being uppity about it, questioning their intention. Which, okay, maybe fine, they're demons. Maybe it's okay to question your intention, but she's also moaning about the task she has to do, and it's like, well, you signed a contract. Now, me as a person, like for starters, I'm a regular person who works at a retail job. I work at a 9 to 5 essentially, and the job is not great and satisfying in any form. But since I did sign that paperwork saying when I'm on their clock I'm going to do my job, then I want to honor that, regardless whether my personal feelings and bias of the job. It's like, well, I signed that contract. I made my bed in this, so now I have to sleep in this bed. And the main character is just like, she just does what she wants to do, what's convenient for her, just get so she can get what she wants, and it's just aggravating. And then the next character they introduced named Kokoro, who's like a older woman character who really start trying to hit on Ray, and Ray's like, "Hey, I'm 15, and this woman's like 22," and it's like, "Okay, I know Japan or sorry, I'm aware that other culture has different age of consent, and considering that this game was, I think, made in Japan, and the story seems to sort of censor in Japan, I'm that's a hypothetical guess there. I'm pretty sure the age of consent is still 16, so she's still too young for statutory rape, but this clearly a woman character is still trying to hit on her, and it's like, okay, that's uncomfortable, very uncomfortable and weird. So yeah. And then even then, the story is dragging its pace, just dragging on and on. the characters constantly kind of be redundant with some of their feelings and sentiments, and I'm just like, can we get on with it? So yeah, Crystar is still on a hard recommendation to don't bother as far as I'm concerned personally. But that was a lot of Crystar talk. So what else can we talk? Well, I haven't actually played any more Assault Spy, but still great for but the memories of it are still really great. So what else has been on my list? Well, that's Killing Instinct. I want to get back into Killing Instinct. Yeah. Nacho plus Blaster. Ooh, the competition in that game is still fierce, but still enjoy. Actually, I guess speaking of games, I tried playing some more Dragon Ball Fighter Z, but I think I'm just about done with that game. I I tried. I tried to get competitive, try to get to the point of competence, but I don't think I really just could bother with it anymore. I don't really know how to see and play in that game. Hell, I tried to deal with the blender, and I can't deal with the blender. I yeah, I no, not even blender. I just can't deal with the turn system. That's a turn. The game really wants you to play aggressively, I feel, and I'm just not really that type of player in a sense. Even then, it feels like if you're not playing with a beam type assist character, then you're just setting yourself up for failure. Which then at that point I'm like, if I have that much limited capacity of how I want to go about play the game, I just don't really care that much anymore. I can't really say I love the game's mechanics. No, I don't love its mechanics. I don't like how when you're coming out of block stun, all of a sudden I can't switch out of my character because other games, oh, you out of block stun, you actually have control, you have access to all the mechanics. Now in this game, oh, you out of block stun, we're going to limit. We can't let you use any of your tag mechanics until after a few frames. And even then, we got weird, weird frame traps, weird ways how this game read how's it cross up. Like it's hard to block cross ups in this game, and I just don't like it. It's just not a game that I really enjoy playing. So I think I'm personally might be done with Dragon Ball Fighter Z because I just really didn't enjoy the game. Um, it just frustrates me, gets me upset. I try to learn and understand it. I went to character discourse. I go on the Dragon Ball Deuce Loop wiki. I look at match video, try to apply it, but at the end of the day, there's a deliberate way you need to play this game, and if you don't play that way, then you're just not going to succeed at this game. And I just don't like that feeling of anything else I do otherwise this particular way of gameplay is bad. Not bad. What am I saying? I just don't like how Dragon Ball Fighter Z just really just seems to favor aggressive gameplay. But then again, that's our system worst games in general. Something I've been saying a lot. I've been telling people, well, no, I've been of the opinion that all Arsenal fighting games just favor the aggressive player. That's just what their games are. They're always about giving the aggressive player all the options, all the rewards, and limit to overall hamper defensive methodical gameplay. And I just never been a fan of it. It's just never been a fan of it. I play Melted Blood, which is one of the most, which is a very, very offensive driven game, but they don't weaken the defensive option. You still have to be mindful of the defensive option because they still have a strong presence. But if the defensive option doesn't have strong presence in other fighting games, sorry, not other fighting. If you don't have a reason to make your opponent be afraid to be on offensive, then why not just autopilot? Why not just keep being aggressive and just lock people down, and then they just have to try to weather through attrition? And I just don't like it. The aggressive player holds the momentum for way too long to the point where it's hard to even keep track of everything what's going on, and then you get blown up because your brain almost turns over being on the defense, and you get blown up because it's like, wait, something just happened. I couldn't really do anything. All right, but yeah, Dragon Ball Fighters kind of done with right now. Let's see what else is there to talk about. Uh, well, actually, there's another thing I do want to talk about. So, remember when I talked about that Zoids game I said I had for the Switch that I said I was going to stream but never did? Well, now I almost have no reason to bother streaming it because we have a new Zoids game. Check it out. So yeah, Zoid's Wild Infinity Blast. This game got my attention very much. Well, it's definitely still based off the old Zoid's Wild game that came out roughly last year on the Switch because I do see the UI is about the same and even some of the effects and graphics are the same. But the thing that's new with this game is one, you could equip your Zoids with different artifacts, which means more or less you could kind of put a customized move set. Generally, I am not a fan of those type of designs, like with Mortal Kombat with their loadout systems and whatnot. Well, I won't say I'm not exactly a fan, but usually I'm weary of how companies handle that because as I like a Zamu, which their whole games are all about, you pick a character, you pick a loadout of certain either assists or additional mechanics to customize your character. But certain other games sometimes just do it and they just have blatantly, hey, this item, this loadout is blatantly better than this loadout, and usually it's a balanced nightmare. But I am willing to give this game the benefit of the doubt because of my biasness towards Zoids. But then not only that, when I saw that color edit, oh, that was so nice. That looked so fun to mess around with. So yeah, just like it's gonna be a fun game overall to just probably mess around with. I didn't see the release date, but I'm pretty sure it's probably something later this year. They did say 2020, right? Oh dear, what did I do? Let's get back to this. Yeah. So yeah, 2020. I think they say winter 2020 on a silicone era. So yeah, really looking forward to that. So yeah, that's all about what I'm basically been looking forward to in the game spectrum. And there's some stuff. Yeah, I'm looking pretty hyped and excited. So yeah, I'm gonna think. I think I'm gonna go ahead and end this for now. Thanks for tuning in. Catch y'all later.